Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, January 28th, 2026, meeting of the Gloucester School Committee, and we are meeting at Gloucester High School Library at 32 Wesley O. Johnson Road in Gloucester. The public is welcome to attend meetings in person or alternatively through the Zoom link provided on the agenda. The meeting notice will reflect if the meeting is via Zoom only. As amendments to the open meeting law allow, the school committee may continue to hold meetings remotely. Please note the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. I will call this meeting to order and state that the mission of Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, lifelong learners. I guess we will do the salute to the flag first, and after we do the salute, we have a moment of silence for Jonathan Hope, who is the leader of our school committee.
Says one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And around the room as to who's here, and we have Andrea online. So Andrea, we'll start with you.
Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Andrea Liakis, School Committee.
Stephanie DeLisi, Recording Secretary.
Paul under committee.
Heather Daigle, School Committee.
No one should have microphone on or speak.
All right.
Bill Melvin, School Committee.
Kathy Clancy, School Committee.
Melissa Kern, School Committee. Laura Weeson, School Committee.
And one the Superintendent.
Amy Toscarello, Assistant Superintendent.
Mike Chavez, Director of Special Education.
First item of business is oral communications. We have no one physically present here. If there's anybody online that wants to raise their hand to speak to the committee. The public will have the opportunity at every regular school committee meeting to be heard under oral communications. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to the school committee business to appear before the school committee, state their problem without debate, and the matter may be referred to the proper subcommittee. See no hands, so we will move along to recognitions. They have recognizes.
Yep, go ahead, Melissa.
I just want to recognize the DPW for all the shoveling they're doing throughout the city, in particular, getting our kids back to school today. Good.
I'd like to recognize the NJROTC. They did their review and inspection last week under the command of Chief Petty Officer Mark Robinson. Terrific. They did a terrific job of it. Really great to see. Also want to recognize the working group that the deepened student learning and improved student achievement using data. And I just want to shout out to that group. We've been meeting for, I think we've had 4 or 5 meetings now, and we've settled on something that we're really going to focus on, and people are excited about it. We have some great teachers involved and some education support professionals, some admin, and of course the school committee. So we're really happy and excited. The people involved are doing a great job with it, and looking forward to seeing where it takes us. I would anticipate that they would be presenting to the school committee at some point this spring. So looking forward to it.
So we just schedule it. I think it'll be actually pretty soon, just for process.
Yeah.
Okay. We do not have any Gloucester High Student Advisory Council tonight, as it's midterms. We know we want them to focus on their studies. The consent agenda. Anybody have any items they would like to remove?
Move that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Wait, can I just ask a question before we? I noticed on the out-of-state trips, there was no rain date. Something to think about in the future. Because these trips are in March. And in case something happens, we might not be able to schedule a meeting too, but I didn't know if you wanted to add that to the form in case there is an ability to have a rain date, if one day fails.
What type of events are they?
One is going to UNH.
Yep.
First one went to the other one is going, the Museum of Art.
Okay. Like a cancellation, in case it's some reason for cancellation, not necessarily
Right.
weather.
Yeah, it
Okay.
could be anything,
Could
but
be
just in
weather.
case they have to cancel the date we approve
Yeah.
and they want to go like the day after and we don't have time to meet to approve
Yes.
it. So it's just a thought that I had to implement in something else that I do in my life, so I just thought it would work good here too.
Very good.
But we'll continue with these and.
Oh,
add
yeah,
more bits.
yeah,
Great.
just
Yep.
in case they want to do a rain date.
Got
Roll call vote, please.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Melville.
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Prince.
Yes.
Ms. Stagel.
Yes.
Ms. Liackos.
Yes.
Yes.
Next item of business is deliberations on education issues and superintendent's report.
Good evening, everybody. Rolling along here tonight, are we? So I wanted to just echo, I think it was Kathy's comments about the DPW and our custodians, of course, also. So Melissa, thank you, Melissa.
Yeah.
DPW and also all of their employees and contractors, and also especially our custodians as well. It's done a remarkable job, you know, with the roads, but also the sidewalks, and the schools were in great shape. The school grounds were in great shape on Monday morning, but as I said to my communication to families, you know, the rest of the city wasn't yet. And that was very much in line with the rest of our communities. You know, we all were working, my other friends and I were working on Monday morning. I was thinking that we were heading towards like a 2-hour delay on Tuesday. But just as it was for us in other communities, as the day went along, we continued to hear from DPWs, just that there's so much snow. One source, Boston.com, said that Gloucester won the snow sweepstakes and we got 27.1 inches more than anyone else. So, but up and running today, obviously, school grounds are in great shape. But really appreciate all the work, many hours overnight, and many people worked. And really a testament to the DPW's leadership and our colleague, our city colleagues. Really, and there may be another storm coming. We'll wait till we get there. Great. So let me share our presentation for the night. So as we say in the Gloucester Public Schools, everybody matters, everybody belongs, and every student learns. I'd like to say hi to Tina Bowling, who I saw is viewing tonight. Tina Bowling is a great special education teacher who retired last year, and just appreciate that she's still engaged and still interested. It doesn't surprise me at all, but nice to see that Tina Bowling is out there. So hello, Tina. So tonight, a few different things. So not too much in terms of the superintendent's report and also the school choice enrollment update, but quite a significant recap from the B&F meeting from last week. So that's sort of the bulk of the meeting will be number 3 there, but a couple of important things to get to first. So it's here on just an update from around the district. So Backyard Growers, which is a great partner for us, you know, all through middle school, you know, preschool, elementary, middle school. And one of their staff members, Meg, here, visited the preschool. And one of the things they do so well is they bring things for our kids to taste. So sauerkraut, any ingredients, sauerkraut, anybody? Cabbage, thank you. So you know, talking things, you know, growing things close to home, but also just expanding kids' horizons. So we try to do it in so many ways here in our schools, and Backyard Growers is certainly one of the examples of how we expand our kids' horizons.
Did they like it?
I have no idea. Yeah, I hope they did, because sauerkraut is great and it's very good for you. Retirements of Roberta Cousins, a longtime ESP paraprofessional for us in our transition program at the high school. She's just been a stalwart for many years. She retired last week. She works with just such an important group of students. They're not, I would say kids, because many of them are young adults. And she's been great. I've been fortunate to see her so often because she and her students have come to the preschool all the time, basically, most mornings. But she had a great retirement, really pulled together by Heather Driscoll, who leads the team there. And just really, and they had a send off to her at a Harbor 9, and had many students and families who came back to wish Roberta well. So just Really appreciate her so much and all her work and all the love she's given her students and their families, which really will be missed. So appreciate her so much. Preschool is getting pretty excited about the new news that the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl once again. Of course we are. But I really have a sense that the preschool kids really contributed to that win. So
They
appreciate
did.
that from them. Gloucester preschool, so we're looking towards, beginning to look towards next year, not only in things like the budget, but also preschool and registration enrollment. So preschool is having its information night Thursday, February 12th, 5 p.m. And they will continue to get out the word and help our folks to share that word about preschool. They also make sure that the local preschools, private and pathways as well, are aware. Plum Cove, so Plum Cove and our other schools have put out our MCAS dates. You can see them all there. There are a lot of them, all the way from end of March all the way into mid-May, and across the different grades and different subject areas. Also, Plum Cove is working with Cape Ann Savings Bank on the Saving Makes Sense program for the 3rd through 5th grade. So helping them develop a good knowledge of banks and how they work and the importance of saving, and giving them some of the the basics of that, including their own passbook and bank bag. This is a program that's been going on for quite some time in the Commonwealth. Schools can opt into it, but Plum Cove's been doing it for a while. So great to they're educating kids not only in reading and writing, but also mathematics and saving for the future. Gloucester High School had a great thank you to Advanced Auto Parts. Advanced Auto Parts, one of our local partners, they gave a generous donation of $5,000 to our automotive program at GHS. You see there just a bunch of students, also Bud Maciel there, one of our auto teachers, Fred Waslick, our tech coordinator, director, and then also really appreciate the Advanced Auto Parts General Manager, Jeremy Lane, and team members from there as well. So I really appreciate that support, local support for our central programs in the high school. Mentioned also looking towards next year, so we are starting our Welcome to Kindergarten nights for all eligible incoming kindergarten families. You can see they're starting on February 24th, which is about a month from now, and continuing into early March. And this is a time for families who are either new to kindergarten, or maybe have already have students in elementary school or other schools, to come hear from the principals and a couple of folks who work at the schools. Also hear from me sometimes, or maybe Assistant Superintendent Pasquarello. Just get a sense of the process of registering, but also what to expect in terms of as the year goes along, in terms of welcoming events, learning about the community, the school communities, and then what to expect, begin to expect in the summer towards school. Another piece of this is helping families just learn a few tips on getting the kids ready for kindergarten. Important stuff that always begins earlier than I expect. And also really appreciate National School Counseling Weeks, or our school counselors, obviously an integral part of our school system now more than ever, I'd say. National School Counseling Week is February 2nd through the 6th. That is actually next week, which is shocking. And then of course, I took the liberty of canceling school for 2 days because of the snowstorm, allowing many kids across the city to have quite a bit of fun. A few photos from the neighborhood, with kids having a good time. Don't know what's down here. Is that like snow treats? Ice. There we go. All right. It was nice to have a good old-fashioned snow day. The snowstorm that reminded us of yesteryear. 47 inches. So, any questions about any of that? Okay. We're going to move on to the enrollment update, and for those of you who are new, we do the enrollment update twice per year. We do enrollment in the schools, in districts, in all our schools in the fall, because those numbers are for the year sort of finalized and reported to the state in October. October 1st is the day we take the snapshot, the sort of initial snapshot. But then we get the school choice numbers from the state in beginning of January. I'll explain what I mean by school choice. We always give this enrollment update about school choice at this time of year. So You've got two types of school choice programs in the district. In-district elementary school choice, that's when a resident family, Gloucester family, lives in an elementary school zone but would like to attend to another school zone. Then they can go through a process of applying for that. Okay, that is not what we're talking about tonight. We are talking about tonight is the one on the right-hand side, which is the state-authorized inter-district school choice program. That's when a student from outside of Gloucester wants to come to our schools. Okay, and that's the case. The process we go through, it's set by school committee policy. We actually revised that a little bit last year. And then their sending district pays tuition, essentially. Okay? It goes through the state there and back again. But essentially, they're paying to come here. And the reverse happens as well, is students will decide to, families who live in Gloucester will decide to educate their students outside of Gloucester in public school. Okay? This is all public school programs. And school committees, if they don't want to participate in that, they have to take a vote. School committee vote to opt out of the school. Okay, always opted in do it as long as I remember. Essentially, the basics of that the inter-district school choice program, the one on the right here, is that school committee authorizes the superintendent to allow school choice in specific grades, programs, or schools. And also name the specific number of spots available. Something we do in the springtime, make that publicly available. And then if there are more applicants for any of those programs or grades, then we have a lottery. Last year, we accepted students into first grade, sixth grade, and ninth grade. And there are also stipulations about like, for example, we can't make any, and not us, but no district can make any stipulations. We can't have any criteria around attendance record, display record, special education status. We can't restrict that attendance, that decision anyway. Okay. We'll talk about Essex Tech later, and it's in some ways they are sort of getting on the same program in terms of having a lottery that's random as opposed to a lottery that's weighted. So those are a few things, but that's what we're talking about tonight, is when students choose to come into our schools or students choose to leave Gloucester to be educated at another school. That's just a little more of the state, sort of details of the state program. So let's get into the numbers. And the yellow, you see yellow bars tonight, and you see blue bars. All right, the yellow bars are school choice into Gloucester. Okay, so you can see how we have in different schools. How many students are choosing from other places into our schools? Okay, put some longitudinal, and this is by grade. Obviously, you see, if Gloucester High has the most, then obviously those kids will be in 9, 10, 11, 12. There, you see that. Okay. In terms of where they come from, so you see there 23 from Rockport, and the remainder are from one each from Beverly, Peabody, Lynn, Essex, and Rowley. And then longitudinally, you see that it fluctuates some, but not too. Sort of the high is 28. The high is 41. Low is 28 over the past 10 years. So not too many coming in. That is quite a bit lower than those who are choosing to leave. We'll get to that in a moment. We are, so we're now in the school. We're going out of Gloucester. Let me pause there on school choice in. Any questions on that so far? So school choice out, you can see there's been a decline past 8 or 9 years. Until this year, slight bump up. I would consider that a change from 215 to 218 to really good level, honestly. Talk about that in a little bit. But notably, this does not include Essex Tech students. We're looking at 218 students who live in Gloucester, choosing to be educated in public schools outside of Gloucester. And this is the breakdown by city and town. See the top few are Rockport, not surprisingly, then Manchester, and then virtual. There's 2 state virtual schools that kids can opt into. Right? We're at 19. Then you see Beverly and the Midget Squad. This is school choice out to Rockport. Okay. As I've always said, we want to educate all our students, all our Gloucester students in the Gloucester public schools. You can see there's been a real it's a steady decline, including this most recent year. Essentially at this point, from FY19, a drop of 100 students. From that are 100 fewer students choice. It's a good trend. And then, this is, again, these are all not, yes, it's that, and then this is the grade dispersal. Okay. Because you know, higher numbers in the high school. We've looked at over the years, people have asked, you know, do you see kids leaving after kindergarten? Or do you see kids leaving after 5 because of a mailing? Actually, we haven't seen that. But we do see, and I'll show you some data about that in a moment, especially of mailing. We would think in some ways we would see drop-offs at those sort of transition years. It's not as simple as that. And this school choice after Rockport, but this is specifically Rockport. So it's the same slides you saw before, but instead of all students, it's just Rockport students. And then you see, just like in terms of school choice in higher numbers of high schools, making that change, you know, between middle and high school into a different high school is I wouldn't say it's common, it's more common. Kids are older. So they may be doing it for a variety of reasons. Could be programs, could be athletics, could be employment for their families as well. Yeah.
Years back when we got a report of this nature, we did a scattergram of where the kids actually live that choiced out.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, the ones that went to Rockport lived in Lanesville, and the ones that went to Manchester mostly lived in Magnolia, and the schools were actually a closer distance to where they lived.
Yep.
So that's helpful information to keep in mind. It's not students just choosing not to be in our district. It's just that the school district that they live closest to may not be the school that they would go to if they went to the Gloucester school. It would be interesting if in your spare time, if you could see something like that, get the next report.
Yeah.
If someone can pull that information, if not, I understand it's work.
No, we have a person who can do that. Mike Muniz is your job, and that's great. It's good
It
stuff.
just helps put things in perspective. It's not like kids are bailing out of Gloucester
Right.
necessarily.
And also just for folks to know, and especially for the new folks, we've tried to track folks down. It's been quite hard to have them answer questions about it. Doing that right way, making phone calls, but also surveys. And haven't had much luck. And we'd like to learn from folks why they're leaving, that sort of thing, but haven't really had. We sort of tried 2 successive years and do that much fun. So.
Just to clarify, so we're saying that people would choice over to Rockport because they live closer to Rockport?
Yeah, so down in Lanesville, that those families feel like if they're near the Rockport line, that the Rockport school system is closer to them, they have friends there.
So parents are choosing because of location.
Because of location, not, in other words, if they were going to O'Malley, it's probably a longer bus ride than from them to get to the Rockport Middle School.
That's
And-
one option. I mean, that's one.
It's just one reason, it's
Yeah.
not the only reason, but it was interesting at that time, at that enrollment discussion we had, it was noticeable that where the students live may have had an impact on the parents' decision.
And that's an inference just because we haven't actually been able to talk to them.
Yeah, right.
Now, so, but again, it seems like a lot of
Yeah.
inference.
And parents don't want to talk about it, they don't,
Yeah.
it's their right to, what they want.
Oh, yeah, no, it totally is, yeah. And so we were hoping to learn from them, but, that's the way we approach it, but it's
Yeah.
So moving on, so these students leaving GPS after 8th grade, so, from O'Malley to high school. So the first number, the largest number on all of this is at Essex Tech, we'll talk about Essex Tech in a moment. You can see how that's just really actually varies year to year. The SY school year 21-22 was really the second COVID year on. Yeah, I think, I'm not sure why Essex Tech was 38 that year. I don't know why. But you see, other than Essex, so this is looking at the graduating class from O'Malley and what they did in 9th grade, okay? So on the left, this second column is how many 8th graders there were, and then the rest of the columns are then what those students did in 9th grade. Okay. So the vast majority, of course, stayed at O'Malley. We started went to the high school, went to our high school, but you see, how Essex Tech 38, 15, 20, 22. And then you have Rockport High, the other public high school, the moved private school or home school. Remember, students who are choiced out to other high schools may have done that earlier on. So we're only looking at students from 8th to 19th. Okay. So, you may say, well, there are other public high schools or bigger numbers of Rockport High, because they may be at Rockport, say, since fifth grade or fifth grade, it wouldn't be counted. These are only students who attended O'Malley in eighth grade, and what they did the following year, ninth grade. It includes this last total here on the right-hand side to show of all the kids who didn't go to Essex Tech, 10 left. Or 15 left, or 11 left, or 17 left, So and that's, that's, I think in terms of looking at the numbers, that's about 5, 6, 7% of the total class. Right? Mainly I should say about 90, other than Essex Tech, okay, that's a sort of an anomaly. About 90% of the kids continue on to Gloucester.
Ben, do we know why and I know because it's gonna come up later, but that 23, 24, did we not, the number's 15 there at Essex Tech, was that?
Yeah,
Did we not fill all the seats that we had?
I honestly don't know. I really don't know. I know that Val's talked about, our average across those years has been lower.
Yeah.
Because of that 15, honestly.
Yeah.
But you'll see in a second, in fact, let me go there. These are Essex Tech numbers,
Yeah,
and you'll see that they've been pretty consistent.
right,
They literally have been like 98, 99, or 107.
right.
So despite this, these sort of anomalous years during 15, the fact of the matter is that these 2 years are the same as these 2 years.
Yeah.
This is 43, this first year, this is 42. So was it, I'm not sure, was it a makeup, a balancing? I'm sorry, I just don't know.
Yeah. And not a big deal, I just curious when.
But this is very important, because we're looking at a couple of things, because as you know, Essex Tech is now instituted a new system for their admissions, okay? And so this is 107, so that's about 26, 27 kids on average from our per grade, okay? That number, and so, here, this is, So of the 170, this is the current year, 107 students, okay? So I'm just looking at some data around Essex Tech, where those kids come from. Now, the 107 students from Gloucester enrolled at Essex Tech right now, 86 of them are at O'Malley, went through O'Malley. The question here is, because we have a large number of kids who are not going to our schools who live in Gloucester, what's the percentage, or what's the number of kids who go to Essex Tech that are our students or have been our students, and what's the number that's that haven't been with our school? Okay, private, parochial, homeschool, what have you. And so if you look at this first bullet, 107 students that are enrolled at Essex Tech from Gloucester, 86 came through O'Malley and 21 didn't. Until this look at this, we just weren't sure what the number was. Okay. 4 students who were enrolled at O'Malley last year transferred out to public school before grade 8. Oh, so 4 of the students, okay, sorry, 4 of the students were enrolled at O'Malley, but left before grade 8, and then went to Essex Tech. 6 students were enrolled at least 1 year for GPS, but left before middle school, and then went to Essex Tech. The last 11 never enrolled in GPS. But just a more sort of granular look at the data behind who the 107 students are, and what was our interaction, what was their relationship with our schools, basically.
Do we know of the 107 minus 86, whatever that is? I think right now,
21, yep.
21, how many of those students were going to Rockport School?
Well, I don't know that, but we can say is that.
In other words, they choiced out to Rockport
Yeah.
Elementary, and then when they got to O'Malley level, they applied, and they're a Gloucester student, so it would trigger a Gloucester student going to Essex Tech, not a Rockport student.
Oh, right,
So it'd be interesting to see what those numbers are.
yeah. The 21 is a total number there,
Yeah,
but it's hard to know, but we don't know that with this.
so
point.
these, the 11, 6, and 4 are part of the 21?
No, they are the 21.
They are the
Yeah,
21.
that adds up to 21.
Okay.
So you sort of like, there's 80, 107 on the top line, and then what that 21 are is below.
And relatedly.
Yeah.
If those students, if they went to Rockport, or their Gloucester's residents, they would still count as the Gloucester allotment.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
the allotment matters where you live, not where you've been going to school.
so that would impact in this new lottery quite a bit.
Yeah, that's why we wanted to look at this honestly, because we weren't sure of the students who do go to Essex Tech, how many of them have been in our schools and how many, you know, we have no relationship with.
Right.
You know, well, it turned out, you know, very high percentage, somewhere 80%, 82% have been ours through grade 8.
So the other important thing I see this as is if kids are not in our schools, how do we also make sure they are very well aware of the great programs we have in Gloucester? As part of the picture of, you know, promoting our schools and having kids know what their opportunities are. Because I know some kids go to Essex Tech and then they decide not to continue because of proximity is something as well.
That 11, Ben, 11 were never enrolled in the Gloucester Public Schools. We're still responsible for those students, that, quote unquote, on the books for us.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So we're paying tuition for all these kids.
We could have been doing out of district tuition for them all along. They went to Rockport or
Yeah.
Manchester.
That's true.
For those 11 were, unless they were.
Unless it was-
Essex Tech cost a little bit. All right, and so that leads us to, so let me pause on, so that's school choice. We're gonna transition to Essex Tech in a moment and their new admissions. I just want to pause. Any other questions on school choice?
I don't have a question, but to Kathy's point, one of the things I saw this week for the very first time was I saw a public school locally kind of promoting themselves and putting themselves out there saying, we're having an open house. And if you're an out of town student, we'd like you to come check out our school. And I thought, boy, with our CBT program, I mean, it's tough to get into some of the programs, but it's interesting that here's a public school promoting itself and and I was surprised at the amount of people that kind of either liked it or kind of how often it was shared amongst people in the general area. So I don't know, something to consider.
I think I brought that up last meeting, actually. I think that, I mean, it would be great to get something like DECA involved and have them promote. Like I, as a parent and somebody who was running for school committee, didn't know half the programs that were happening at Gloucester High School. I mean, my kids are starting to kind of tell me, now that they're getting more involved in some of them, but I really had no idea what they had.
Well, it's also our advanced placement. I mean, there's a million reasons to know more about Gloucester.
Right.
Bias, engineering, all those things.
Remember when we had the wire?
We did an ad in the newspaper, I think, 2 or 3 years in a row.
We had that wire actually.
Yeah.
Did you that did it?
But I just really want to, be clear that like, this is getting better and has a downward trend, But this is worrisome, used to be more worrisome, okay? I mean, really want to educate our watch students here, And honestly, I really appreciate and value parents doing what's right for them, whatever that is. It doesn't mean that, every public school is right there in the family, right? But we should keep on working better as we have communication and help people know about our great programs, advertising. I mean, as Kathy and Bill and Heather were saying, robotics and engineering, arts programs. I mean, so many things. DECA, and I think DECA helping us to promote. It's a great idea. We'd love to get students involved in that. All right, so let me move on to the news about Essex Tech. You had in your packet the full memo. I think it's probably towards the back of it. Oh no, it's actually looks like this right there. But let me give you the summary. So you remember that in December, I believe half of December, we learned that Essex Tech was doing this. First time we heard of a proposal. The mayor, myself, and a representative to the Essex Tech School Committee about we went to a meeting. At that meeting, following the district's proposed alternative. On January 20th, that and other proposals were heard by their admissions subcommittee. And the 20th, and the 22nd, their school committee voted. Seems pretty rushed to me, but that's my opinion. But this is what they decided. it's in front of you. The proposal they decided, and Val put together, Val put forward an alternative. Sort of between the original proposal and this one. Okay, this proposal was based, the original proposal, as you may remember, was based on recent enrollment. And looking at the recent enrollment from each district and basing it on the 3-year average. The difference here is, well, there's a couple of differences. One, they're doing a random lottery. Okay. Before this, Essex Tech used a weighted system with a criteria and selected students. Okay, I think it was a lottery in a way, I'm not sure about that. And then this, because the state has pushed them and all the regional techs and also conference high schools too, do lottery admissions, they're changing things. The first proposal was to do one based on creating minimum targets for each community and doing that based on recent enrollment. In that version, which you see here on the left, our minimum target, which means the target we definitely meet, was 23 students. You can see on the right, the adopted proposal here for a second, we're up to 35. Significant difference and worrisome. The proposal that was approved was based on total number of students in each community, or our 8th grade age, basically, or in 8th grade. I don't mean in 8th grade in their schools. I mean who live in that community. If you think about, our 8th grade plus however many kids live in Gloucester who are 8th grade don't go to our schools, right? And they created a proportion, based on the 427 student enrollment and whatever percentage of that whatever percentage, you take all the students across all the member communities that are in 8th grade, add that up, okay, and you take our total, how many we have, apply that same percentage to 427. Get the numbers that are here. Because if I can offer a simple math way to make that look clear. If they're 5.
It's proportional.
Yeah, proportional.
That's.
If there are more questions, you can ask them to me. I'll start with do some math exercise.
It's proportional instead of an average of what, right?
And it's proportional not to the number of students who are in your 8th grade in public school. It's proportional to the total number of 8th graders living in your community. What it doesn't consider is proximity, and whether or not that's because of proximity, how many students want to go to the school. It doesn't consider what's been historical in terms of how many kids have applied. It doesn't consider differences in application numbers. Okay, so I think there are some challenges. They are 2 things. They're going to try for 1 year, and then perhaps consider consider changes. And another concern by all the district, including ours, was Essex Tech enrollment is going pretty dramatically in the last 10 years. So they're capping that enrollment at 427 for the next 3 years. So that's sort of where we are. Kathy, any questions you might want to call me?
I noticed that out of the 5 biggest districts.
No, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No.
No, go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I noticed out of the 5 biggest districts that Gloucester is the only one that really, outside of Salem, went up, I think, 2 from the December 12th memo.
Yes.
Salem went up 4 students. We went up, what, 15 maybe?
12.
And the other, Beverly, Danvers, Peabody, all dropped considerably.
And they're the ones who put it forth.
Yeah.
Okay, they've had a lot of students coming in. This is why we didn't support that proposal.
Yeah.
That's why we thought it was, I don't want to say it harms us, that's too strong a word, but it disadvantages us.
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, running public school disadvantages us. Right? It does allow more students to go to Essex Tech, which is a great place to go to school. Okay,
Yeah.
But it was definitely every of the other communities increased. Some of the communities don't have that many applicants. They have a minimum number that's above the number of applicants for the certificate. Right. So this is, I think, one of the challenges of the proposal was that it actually wasn't well vetted. because there's a time frame, very fast time frame. They were pushing to get it done because they need to start their admissions process. But between, mid-December and January 22nd, there was a month in the month, 5 weeks in the calendar. Those folks were not operating for, at least 2 of those weeks.
My fear is that the horse is out of the barn now, you say, oh, they're gonna do this, they're gonna review it next year, most of us know how those types of things go. I'm not convinced that it's gonna be a thorough review and we're gonna adjust the numbers per se, I also wonder if at the mayor or something that, can there be some input or is there, I don't know if there is there input from the mayors, from these bigger?
There's very much input from the mayor.
Okay.
Very much, very significant lobbying and most of other approaches. Yeah, very significant.
Yeah, so I've been lobbied by the mayors of the larger districts that wish this also through, which, bear with me, because this is a little bit complicated, but here's what I understand. So by lowering their minimums, they are lowering the amount of money they have to pay to Essex Tech. And by raising the numbers on districts like ours, we end up paying more. It's a very attractive place to want to go to. We have our minimum in the December proposal of 23, but we have 80 people want to go. Yeah. So if our minimum is raised, we're going to fill that minimum. We're going to end up, so there's that. And I've been trying to understand the objection that we have to that, because we are competing against Essex Tech. And we have a competitive program here, and we would rather that those students went here because we have a vocational program which is not quite as broad as Essex Tech. But is that your understanding, Ben? Is that the key of this dispute? I got a call yesterday from the town manager of Topsfield, and he characterized his role in calling me was he's the assigned leader of the districts that want to oppose this new allocation, because the smaller districts are ones like us. We're going to end up with more students eligible, or more students actually going to Essex Tech, and that means more tuition that we have to pay. We're not saving any money in our costs because we have students going to Essex Tech, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Our costs stay the same. So is that kind of it in a nutshell?
Yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, right.
Yeah.
If we have more students going to Essex Tech, like if we have students go to another public public school, but by and large, it reduces our cost to them.
Right.
It doesn't reduce our cost internally.
Right.
Okay, so it's a net add. Okay?
Yeah.
And then, Beverly and Peabody and Salem, believe that too many of their students are going.
Many, yeah.
Now, they have higher demand than us, and they're also closer.
Right.
Beverly and Danvers certainly are. So is Peabody. But they wanted to lower it and reduce their costs and also reduce the drain on their high schools.
Right.
And because they're feeling essentially a drain on their high schools to Essex. And they, I think, don't want that happening.
So if I could try and encapsulate our objections. So the state is requiring Essex Tech and the other technical schools to go more to a lottery-based system for admissions that they claim is fairer rather than the choice systems that were made. And in doing this, the larger other districts in our school have taken advantage of this process, and they've figured out that if they can limit their numbers, they'll save big bucks and other. That's kind of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
And I think they use.
But let me just finish.
Yeah.
So what I've said to them all, the mayors of Salem and Beverly and this fellow from Topsfield, I said, I'm just learning about this, but what we will do is what our school committee and our superintendent think is the right thing to do for Gloucester, whether it's voting yes or voting no. I said I don't know, but that's where I'm at. So I'm not going to I'm trying to understand where you guys are coming from. I would rather do what we think is best for our students. So wherever that gets us, that's what I'm saying.
So for someone who's been involved with this new school since the beginning, it's a struggle for me to sit here and listen to this conversation. I think I went to Essex Tech in 2010. So the building wasn't built. We were still in Beverly, at Middleton, and talking about building a school. And when the new school was built, regulations were put in place to determine weight votes and when those weight votes can be used. And interestingly enough, back then, it was a battle to get more students into the schools. Peabody shut down half their programs, if not 2/3 of their programs, and were expected from day one to be 1/3 of the population at that school. Salem shut down some programs, and they too were expected to have a certain percentage, knowing that they shut down their programs. We didn't shut down programs when we joined, but they did. So when the school was first built, it was a struggle to get more higher numbers. And Peabody and Beverly and Salem were very happy with the numbers they had, knowing the numbers were going to grow over the next 4 years because they built out the school. So we knew enrollment was going to get higher. And for 8 years, it seemed like everything was fine. Now that we're struggling with funding for education, all of a sudden it's a problem. Where before, it was, we want more kids. We want the ability to get more kids, and parents were complaining about the admissions policy, thinking it wasn't fair that the bigger cities had more kids. Now, I see an opportunity here, and I'm glad you're having those conversations to challenge this, because the regulation, I forget what the code number was, dictated when a wage vote could be used and when a wage vote can't be used. For example, when we did our bylaws and pulled the school together, everybody was an equal vote. When they vote the budget every year, everybody is an equal vote. And it's so that these bigger communities, Salem, Peabody, and Danvers, can't control everything by their numbers. And I see this as an opportunity to challenge, why was this a Wade vote where the mayors decided their cities are now paying too much, which years ago they wanted to pay, now they don't want to pay because of the struggles. Why wasn't this a Wade vote? Because that leaves out all the smaller communities. Like I look at Marblehead and how much their numbers went up, that's going to crush that community.
Right.
So it just doesn't seem fair. And it seems to me if you get the Bruce Tars and Senator Lovely in place, because she was very involved with this, to look at how this process is actually happening and determine, was that fair? Did they foresee that the expectations in the beginning were now going to be flipped upside down, and now the bigger communities are trying to pay less and own less of the school? Because as you know, we're not just paying tuition, we're paying debt service on the school for 20 years. And that is determined by population as well. So this conversation is completely flipped upside down. The fact that they were able to use Wade votes to this new agreement that the mayors from the bigger communities seem to control. I was told that they were standing there behind their representatives, making sure their representatives voted at the time. Just shows that there's tension. It seems to me that there is an ability here through the court system to intervene here and do some sort of stop and have a review of exactly how this process was handled from beginning to end. If it's fair, is it consistent with what other vocational schools are doing? Because they're all changing their enrollment, what do you call it? Policy. To get in, admissions policy. You know, you would think that the state would want consistent admission policies throughout all the vocational schools, not individual schools. So it seems to me,
I did read another district did it on the last few years, historical enrollment.
did they?
Like the original thing that came forth through the
Right.
committee at the time.
So if I were leader, I wouldn't hesitate right now to get some sort of injunction in place to say, wait, what is going on here? Not only is this rushed, But what was the oversight to it? And why are 4 communities, if not 3, because Gloucester's number 5 in the vote, why were they able to control this decision without the smaller communities having a say in it? So I can't stress enough how much I would want my superintendent and my mayor to look into what their legal opportunity is right now before any decision that was made in the past 30 days becomes moot because there wasn't an injunction filed in time. Do you want to say something?
Well, nothing as important as what Melissa just said. I think what Melissa said is the most important thing. I was just gonna say from a parent's perspective, I think this is just important information to understand the relationship between the Tech and Gloucester schools. Because I think, you know, as we noticed, some of these kids haven't even gone through Gloucester schools. Those who have, I think what Melissa said is the most important thing, but I just think it's also important for us to understand for families, A, to promote what we have at Gloucester High School, and B, for them to understand the relationship between the Tech and ours and Gloucester.
I think the thing that disappointed me the most about this is the fact that their subcommittee came up with an admission policy over a lot of meetings. And at the last minute, where communities came in and within 2 days, totally just changed it. And with the smaller communities not being part of that discussion really. And as you say, I mean, the numbers, I wonder what these communities have said to their students to say, well, we used to be at X and now we're going to be at X minus, 50% of what we used to have. I mean, that I just can't imagine that that's a popular thing for those communities because they're limiting for their own students by a significant number of students. I mean, this isn't just 5 kids. This is like some situations. So it's just really, to me, bad policy and bad process. That somehow got approved.
It's the wage thing, shouldn't have been allowed.
So, excuse me, just so I understand, the weighted vote based on the size
But
of the population of the town or the,
so how many students we send,
yes,
it's a weighed vote, so they get 1 vote for 50 students. So we had 126 at one point, so at one time we had 3 votes, because you get the
okay,
2 for the 100. So for every 50 students, you get 1 vote. At least that's how it was then. I don't know if they've changed it. So Gloucester was always like 2 to 3 votes, but Salem and Peabody and Danvers were all 5, 6, or 7 votes. So I mean, it was a known common habit that when there was an important issue coming before the school committee, you knew who you had to target to get your votes because everything was weighed with the exception of the budget. And because this is a money issue,
right.
my guess is the legislature did not intend for this money issue not to be weighed vote. So I would look into that.
So this vote should not have been weighted.
It should not have been weighted, in my
For
opinion.
each community.
In my opinion, from the way we operated, the
the-
way the regulations were, it should not be weighed.
Right. Which would still, you'd still be able to accomplish this lottery system, which was the beginning of this in the first place, that it's somehow the selection system of vote unfair to some students. So if you have a lottery, then that's theoretically fairer, right?
So, I mean, knowing when I was there until 2018,
Yeah,
the fact that they could take behavioral issues into like
yes,
they want that not to be a reason.
not to be,
Right.
right,
Whether that's fair or not, I'm not
I
gonna
know.
entertain that conversation. So I see that the state wanted a more fair process, which is one issue.
one issue.
This is a budget issue. This is all about money and nothing more, in my opinion. Because they could fill that school with students from other communities that aren't members if they needed to.
Right.
In other words, I don't know, what's a city? Where do I live? Georgetown. Does Georgetown go there? I don't think they do.
No.
But
Not just,
if they go to Whittier. they have an ability to pull students in from other ways if they wanted to. But clearly this issue and the changing of the minimum is a money issue because towns are struggling and Danvers and Peabody are looking for a way to pay less, not just in this, not just in the tuition, but also in the student, the capital project debt that they have to pay for the next, I think, so they've been open since 2014, so they have another 8 or 9 years on the debt service, and then that's gonna go away unless they added to it. And then you'll just be paying tuition after that. The towns are struggling, so.
Yeah.
One of the pieces of this is that, as you mentioned, they're also many of these districts, especially the three we talk about declining enrollment. So the enrollment at Essex Tech is increasing, the rest of the enrollment is declining. That's another, I'm not trying to, I'm trying to explain part of their motivation to shift it, to get it away from where it was going.
But enrollment's declining everywhere. You can't tell me Rockport's gonna find 9 kids, they only had 3 kids when I was there for 10
No,
years,
no,
right?
I'm saying, in terms of that, you talk about before, wanting large numbers.
Yeah, they wanted the number.
So the environment has changed, so at least, the mayors again don't want increasing numbers.
Right.
Fewer numbers.
I mean, I take the position, I think the more kids that wanna go and can get there. I shook the hands of every kids when they got their diploma, and the kids to me that went there weren't just going for programs. They were going because they didn't feel a sense of community in Gloucester, for whatever reason,
Yep.
and it was just a better fit for them. It wasn't, to me, I don't see that school in direct competition, because I think the programs we have are great. But they just offer so much more. So here we have 5 to choose from. They have 17 plus all the agricultural programs as well. I mean, it's just it's an interest in a different way than coming to Gloucester.
I agree. I think some of it is children that really want to go into certain programs. I think some of it is, and a big part of it is, it's cool to go to Essex. I mean, children want to get in. I mean, I was really excited my children didn't get in, but they both did apply because they had no idea what they wanted to do there. But they, so I think a good part of that 80 that applied are just thinking of people.
But you gotta think too, it's almost an hour ride there in the morning, an hour ride home, and their late bus is later. So students that go to Essex Tech are committing to their full day at school. Most don't get home until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Almost at dinner time, and they're on the bus for an hour. But you see the bus in Gloucester at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. So it takes a certain student to want to get up that early, sit on a bus for that long while they go to all the other communities. And I think Gloucester's first that they pick up.
So I mean, what the big thing is, we have children going there now. What is our average? It looks like it's more like 23 to 25, not 35. So we just need to get that number down a little bit to keep it.
That's one class.
Yeah. Just the
So
entering, yeah.
with 107, 105, it's essentially 26, 27 kids it has been, on average. Fluctuates some.
Right.
So this is from that to 35 is 7, 8 kids. Each year times 4, so you're looking at 30 kids.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of kids.
Yeah. And how many of these other big schools that we're competing with here, Beverly, Danvers, do any of them have their own vocational schools?
They do.
Peabody does.
Peabody and Salem.
Salem still does too.
Yeah.
It's it.
But
So,
Peabody reduced, they had a much bigger program, and when the school was built, they determined the need for Essex Tech was gonna be 1/3 of the student population at that time. You gotta think now the population has grown there, but at that time, Peabody had dibs on being 1/3 of the school, knowing they shut down.
It's likely to
a
have
lot
into
of
our programs if, I said that's likely to happen to our programs if 10 extra kids a year are taken out of our.
Yeah.
so for the bottom line, our goal would be, our opportunity, if there is one, is to look into this issue of the weighted vote for that particular recommendation that came from subcommittee and then the Essex Tech School Committee, of which we have a representative, voted with weighted votes, and the big schools were able to get their proposal in,
Right,
as opposed to if everyone had one vote,
right.
the recommendation of the school committee
It's okay.
of the subcommittee that did this, their original proposal from December, that would be what get in with just a straight vote.
And I can
that's-
send you the legislation that
Yeah,
determined the weight votes on the couple issues that were weight votes for you to use and make the argument that this is a budget issue and all budget issues aren't weight votes at the tech.
I'll ask one more question. Maybe you don't know, I should ask about. Was that issue discussed at the school, at the Essex Tech School Committee, the weighted vote versus the one vote for, or don't we know?
Wait, sorry, just say that again, I might not answer the question.
During the discussions of this whole process, did the school committee, the Essex Tech School Committee, did they discuss this weighted vote versus a single vote? You don't know, okay.
I sent Val the information the night before the meeting. Asking her to present that. I don't know if she did.
Why don't Val and I look into that?
And it sounds
And then
like your counterpart that's reached out to you.
The guy from Topsfield
Would wanna
definitely thinks
have a
it should have been,
conversation.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so I'll ask him. And also, the other question I will have is, what about the other vocational schools in the Commonwealth? There's like 17, right? What have they done on this, or did they do something that looks like this, or do we know? We'll find out. I'll take that one,
I sent you
thank you.
the act establishing the school that talks about the weight votes.
We're not happy, so we know that, okay?
And the three communities, two large communities, also Salem, right? Salem.
I'll just make one other comment. When we were at that meeting, Ben, remember there was a lot of speech making by some of the other representatives. And Heidi did her best to try and set the record straight. In fact, she even called one of my colleague mayors out, he had his facts. There was a lot of, so she must have been really struggling with this process because all of a sudden it erupted into this discussion that was straying away from the quality of education and going somewhere else. Budget, as you.
It's all about money.
Yeah. Okay.
Ultimately, Beverly, Danvers, and Peabody
Peabody, yeah.
reduced their
Significant.
minimum by 72 students each
Right.
year. Those 72 students, actually plus a few, because we went to 40, were made up by the other ones. So we, of their 72, we took a hit of 13 students. 12 students.
We were 10% of the school population. I don't know where we are now in our figures, but that's something you can look into. Originally, through the build out years, through 2019, when I left, we were about 10, our student population was about 10% of the building. It'd be interesting to know now with the size of the school, I know they've added buildings, so they've added more. What is our current percentage, and is 35 consistent with that? That's where I would go first to look if I was there to try to compare to what is actually changing.
And I remember when the city council had to be involved in discussions for the new school, right?
So I was actually put on the committee to get out of the agreement when I was appointed to go to Essex Tech, because they wanted to build out Gloucester, right? That was the discussion. And we had a public hearing led by Jackie Hardy, at the time, President Jackie Hardy. And overwhelmingly, this community was committed to making sure that Essex Tech was or that even North Shore Vocational School at the time was an option. So then it was the build out of the school and got involved, and we brought all the relevant parties to the Gloucester City's council meeting, and you can go back and read those meetings, and it talked about how we were gonna be about 10%, and we could expect to pay that in the capital costs and in tuition costs at that time, which was about 2014. Or
And this-
13.
And this shift makes that different. than the rest of the debt as well.
Or it might not. I don't know what the population is at Essex Tech now, since they remodeled across the street, because we didn't have that for school space at the time, the old Abbott Hall. So their capacity is bigger now too. So it's 35, 10%.
It says current enrollment 421.
No, that's
That's one.
that's one grade.
That's one class. So times
Yeah.
four.
Yeah, so they're over 7,800.
10%, yeah,
They're over 7,800.
And I think our max at the town was supposed to be 14 something on the fourth year. So, just things to look at.
Mm.
Well done. On that.
Okay, so
Never all done.
Mm.
So subcommittee report?
Okay, so we move on to subcommittee reports and we just have one, which is a bulk of some of what we're discussing tonight, which is the Building and Finance Subcommittee meeting on January 21st, 2026, and I will turn it over to Chairperson Moss.
As you give the update, then I'll chime in on a few.
I was just gonna ask you, like, I'm gonna give a very small update and then just turn it over to you for the bigger conversation.
Great.
Is what I wrote in my notes that I was gonna do, knowing you have
All set.
the
Let me know when.
information. So we met on January 21st and we're all present. Received a report from a CFO. Gary Frisch was still with us and Saskia was at the table joining us, which was exciting to see her in a new position. Like we have on the agenda every month, we talked about special education, out of district tuition and transportation. And are happy to report, I'm not gonna give specific numbers tonight, because saying 7 million, 8 million here and there might not be understandable. But know that our budgets are very stable in that area for tuition and transportation. We do have 4 students on a waiting list, and these are not the same 3 students that we had last year. They're 4 different students.
Last month.
I mean, last month.
Yeah.
And last year, we had 3.
No, it's always been different.
Yeah. But we only had 3 last year, and it was informed that the students are different.
Yeah, so what happens is each month of being when we talk about special education tuition, out of district special education tuition, we always get sort of month-to-month report on where we are in terms of for spending and what we think we project by the end of the year. And we also say how many students are sort of waiting for placements. Okay, a change of placement, a new placement, that sort of stuff. It typically is not the number 3, very honestly, but that doesn't mean it's just because it might be 3 one month, 3 next month. It's not the same 3. So I've had a student placed, and then now a different student now in process. That's what you're trying to explain.
Right,
is-
yeah, it's not the same, right,
Yeah,
it's
is-
3 stuck in my head from last year, now we're at 4, so I'm thinking, oh, there's one more student not added to the list, but
Yeah,
no,
but
it's
those,
not that way.
we never get into details obviously of which students those are, but even though the number will be the same, it could be different students.
okay,
And then talking about our in-house special education programs, with great thanks to Dr. Jarvis, we have our autism programs this year. And unexpectedly, we have more students than we had budgeted. So there is an increase to the needs of the students, specifically at West Parish and East Veterans. Also, there's higher replacement costs for services that were in place last year versus this year. So, and correct me if I'm wrong on this figure, it's approximately 513,000. Yes.
Okay, so we print out some of the slides, not all of them, but at least the ones, and so you didn't expect to get a personnel salary budget. And I'm also gonna show it to the you and folks at home. So, and then Dr. Jarvis and I will explain. I'll share this. So what we have here is since the beginning of since the budget was approved, so the FY26 budget was approved in June. Okay, during the summer, going into the year, we've had additional special education costs, special education needs, which lead to special education costs. Okay. And quite significant. Explain that in a moment. But wanted to bring it to the committee, of course, BNF and the full committee. And we've let the BNF committee know this along the course of the year, and now we have the whole numbers. And so we'll just talk this through. Mike, feel free to chime in. But ultimately, what you see here are on the left-hand side, teachers and specialists we've had to add to our budget since the beginning of the fiscal year. Right-hand pair is an RBT. Our RBT is a registered behavior technician. They support in our autism program. So, what you see specifically is in two of our programs, autism programs at East Veterans, but then also at West Parish, okay, we had to add a classroom at each school. Okay, and that means we saw in early elementary, specifically kindergarten, more students were coming into the district than we had anticipated during the summer and leading in up into the school year. So while we have both those programs in existence at West Parish and East Veterans, we need another lower elementary classroom. Okay, and that means we add a teacher in each of those classrooms, and then we also add a pair or two, whatever the students need, based on their IEP. Okay, and staffing them, providing them free and appropriate public education, FAPE, okay, or the least restrictive environment, okay, is the law of the land. So once we identify the kids' needs, we are obligated to provide for those needs, education, okay.
So Bill, just for the programs and the program design, particularly for West Parish, severe autism. So the nature of this kind of instruction is very much small group instruction. So just trials, ABA oriented instruction. So it's 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 ratio. It's intensive kind of instruction because of the need. And it's not a classroom where you can have 12 kids and have that design. We're looking at a program that would probably have maxed out, it'd be 7 or 8 kids at the most. And even then, that's a high number. But if you just imagine how many teachers and paraprofessionals and RBTs that would be in that one classroom. So noisy, but it's productive noisy. So that's why we had to expand. And frankly, we're at the point of being fully, and the year hasn't even begun.
And that also means that we have have to provide support educators. So and that's the autism programs at East Veterans and West Parish, but also on the right hand side you'll see Beeman. So they have a therapeutic behavior program, and so I've also added staff in that, and then also add staff. You'll see preschool as well, and that's again based on student needs. Students, remember, especially with preschool, students begin at any time during the year. Once they become 3, they're out to start preschool, okay? And so higher needs there, both in a substantial separate program, but also with individual students as a 1-to-1 because of their complex needs. And then in addition as well for life skills at GHS. Life skills is a very high needs program, and you need to add a paraprofessional there as well. Again, based on students developing needs that hadn't been identified before. So those are significant additions. They're probably, and I'll say this though, at the same time, really important we provide those additional staff and resources to help educate the students, like first and foremost. The other piece is these are such intensive programs that if they go well, school goes much better. If they don't go well because we aren't providing the necessary staff needed by the students, then it has a dramatic ripple effect. It really does. In the past, we've seen that. Yeah.
Are these fully staffed? Have these positions all been hired?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you have any like vacancies? Any of this?
I don't believe so this time.
Well, that's great.
I think the Beeman ESP were hired.
Yeah. So Beam's fully staffed.
Yes. It wasn't like that for a full year.
I know.
Qualified.
As of when?
I think it was a product of.
Yeah, job fair.
It's reduced. It's an applicant. Yeah.
There's also an ongoing need, though. I mean, let me say this. Continue to look at all the high needs programs in terms of how things develop through the year. And at some point we see that there's an additional need there. And we will often if you can't provide that. So I just, so we've been talking, so Mike is I also included in that. He's the lead talking with the principal, but also special education program leader about those specific programs.
Because as you say, like it ripples into the entire building.
Yeah.
All of, and so it's just a real priority, I think, in all of these buildings, to be sure that staff is supported, students are supported, and the principals are supported. So these very intense programs don't disrupt the entire building.
Yeah, they need to have the support that's required, and they deserve that.
Yeah,
So, that-
and that's what, I mean, I very purposely said, we have to staff these in the ways that the students need to support those students.
Yeah.
Okay, and give them, make sure they have access to equal education, in a nutritious environment. Then secondarily, we don't, it impacts both the students, families, or teachers, but also impacts outside of the classroom as well. But first and foremost, we're doing it for support the students.
I have a question from Mike, and I can't remember if I asked you this at the meeting. Did I don't remember the answer. Have we identified all the students in our school system that are in need of this program, or do we still have existing IEP requests or requests for this program that are outstanding? In other words, are we able to get through this year? And looking forward to next year, do you see the current situation that we have in place expanding? Because we've doubled already this year, right?
Yeah.
Because we were only gonna have one class and we have two,
Well, those are,
right?
so not the same program, so I talked
Okay.
about the West Parish program being severe autism intensive needs. To a lesser degree, the East Vex autism program is a moderate level of need. So the students enrolled in that program having modified curriculum, but they do flex in for periods, whether it's in specials like this, or sometimes courses just
Okay.
the same. So we did touch a little bit on this. So I'll use the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes and no. Yes, in the way of we have a process that our program leaders, our special education program leaders know their students in their building, and then we have a weekly meeting to talk about student needs. So there's a referral process that coincides with that, and that's an ongoing practice that we have, that's going to be established. So we have that in effect, and so that there could be enrollment in any of these programs as the year goes on. The way of identifying them, a way of making sure it's appropriate, and a way of acting with an action plan. And where I'd say no is potentially with preschool. So as early intervention goes, we do our preschool with Andrea Pro. She does excellent work communicating with early intervention. Early interventions is for kids before they're 3 years old, and it is giving them support and information. Kids are so young, right? It's hard to have diagnostics ready to go, hard and fast data. A lot of it's through observation and activities, and observation through set activities, so that we know what student needs are, right? So yes, we can do that, but sometimes we don't have parents that are enrolled in early intervention. Sometimes they don't tell the district that their child has a high level of need. And for that, when they roll up, and then we've got to move forward, and that's when we have to add paraprofessionals potentially. And that those have been circumstances. Sometimes DCF's involved with those cases too. And so we have to begin the educational process to where they are.
And so we're also tight on some programs right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get
let's be
at.
clear about that.
We are.
We are, and so,
Space is really.
yeah, space is tight, and that's specifically, in our preschool program, definitely. And I would say also the elementary emotional behavior one, either, is probably our two tightest ones, right?
I want to use this opportunity.
Yeah.
So this is really important. I said it before, but I'm going to say it again, and I'll keep saying it. So we can't district program our way out of meeting students' needs. The program that really has to enact is our inclusion program. Inclusion services, that's it, inclusion with services and consultation coming from potentially a district program and other providers. That's at the heart of the matter here. we have to build our capacity with our inclusion program. It's good for all kids, no matter what level of performance, high, middle, or the lower end, it's good for all kids. And that's really where we're gonna need to make the biggest difference for kids. And I think that, so with any challenge or problem or impediment, there's strategy, right? And so that's gotta be our strategy. And I'll add more color to that. Relative, we'll add more to that in our coming meetings, to what we're doing, why we're doing it. But it's got to be the backbone of the district. I'll say it, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's the backbone of the district. It's got to be that way. It's good for all kids.
Another way of thinking about that, you've heard us say this, but it's comparable. You talk about tier 1 instruction, every student gets every single day. If your tier 1 instruction isn't strong, then you need a lot more tier 2 support, or it looks like you do. Okay, but if you strengthen tier 1 instruction, fewer kids need tier 2 supports or your additional instruction. It's a similar thing. If you have strong inclusive practices in your generative classrooms, okay, and also strong connection between programs and the classrooms, okay, then you're reducing the need for programs, okay?
Yeah.
But you're always going to need programs,
Yeah.
okay, to have that level of need. But what you're trying to do is by strengthening the support that all our staff is providing in classrooms, it happens over time, and folks need to, it's learning skill out there, then you're sort of reducing some of the need of you're helping kids who may need a program now, not have a program in the future.
And the outcomes are there. So it's not just in a score, it's more than a score. It's social and emotional well-being, social emotional development, so your social pragmatic development for all kids. And so those are markers too. Those are points, not just an MCAS score. But while on the MCAS score, and I'll roll this in, unless you mentioned, I think last time you mentioned or asked, like with wit and wisdom, like I think you asked, so how do we know that's that's the right curriculum, that's rigorous enough for really what we want to improve our scores? And I'll say in my former district, and it didn't take me 12 years to do this, I was part of instituting the wit and wisdom program. Now it would be 7 years ago, and it converged with our inclusion program, our credit teaching model. And it didn't take 12 years to get there, it took less. And that, so student outcomes, as measured by MCAS data, student growth percentiles rival the state, 80 percentile, 90 percentile, because of those two factors of a rigorous curriculum with wisdom and with the institution of a viable inclusion program at play. So that it can work, it's got to.
I'm gonna put some more data to show you. I'm just pulling it back up again. So and then another piece on this is there have been additional costs as well against all special education. Sorry. So this is a higher replacement cost. So if a teacher moves on and they were making one salary, a lower salary, and they're replacing at a higher salary, we used to be able to count on much more salary savings. And so in the past, what typically happened in our school district and others is someone leaves at a higher salary, you hire their replacement at a lower salary. Okay, the difference there is savings. Okay, you can apply to other things. That's really changed course in public schools recently, especially because of demand, lower supply of high quality teachers, fewer folks going into the business, so to speak. So what we're seeing more often, especially in high needs areas like special education, that we are hiring people at higher salaries than we let people move on from. People move on for a variety of reasons. We've asked them to go, or they just change profession or change where they live. But these times, especially when it comes to special education, you were hiring them at a higher rate. So what you see here is 3 examples, and these are real examples of teachers who the FY26 budget we budgeted for 61,000, but hired the person at 98,000. Okay, or budget of 70,000 and hired the person at 89,000, or in this case, budget says 70,000 and hired the person at 4,000. Sure.
So what it also reflects is the experience. So making sure that we have highly qualified staff with experience with high leverage programs, like our severe autism program at West Parish and our autism program at East Vets. So it can be a difference maker. Yes, it's an investment, but it's really crucial for especially those high leverage programs.
We're okay hiring folks with more experience because that often works out better. But there is, it can become an unanticipated cost. What we often try to do is if we're hiring someone who's above what we budgeted, other folks below the budget, okay? And often that'll work out. So it balances to what you budgeted overall. In this case, in these such cases, we're able to do that. And not just so people know, these are arbitrary salary numbers. These are on the salary scale. That was negotiated, between the TA and so. And of course, as folks know, there are folks placed on the salary scale depends on their experience. Teaching.
And I would just say also, as we're trying to strengthen these programs, we definitely want people that can help, that have that experience to get us there quicker.
Yes.
And mentor and all the other things that experience brings.
The pool is low, is smaller, and still we want the hardest and the best people. Also, so what that means is that on this one page in the gray bar here, gray row, those additions in terms of salary differential adds up to $105,000. You're adding that to the prior page. The total amount that we had to add to the budget since the budget was approved is $600,000, just over $600,000. Some of that, not all of it, can be absorbed by the budget, but we'll get to that the next thing. Any further questions on this? So the city and the city council, fire mayor, and also the school committee created a special education reserve fund in the city for the city. The city has a number of reserve funds. I want to say 5. Don't quote me on that. It's not a large number, but I think paving what might be one. But I'll stop talking about the other ones. But the Transportation Reserve Fund, so just to educate the committee on it and the public, the Transportation Reserve Fund is for unanticipated or unbudgeted costs for special education. I'm sorry, this is state language. It's authorized by Massachusetts general law. Okay, and this is the authorizing language that is used both by the city and by the state and also the city. City's language as follows: for unanticipated and unbudgeted costs of special education, tuition and transportation. The balance in the special education reserve fund in the city that the city has can't exceed 2% of what we call annual net school spending. Okay, and the funds can only be distributed from the city's reserve funds for majority vote of the school committee and also the city council. So it's obviously for unanticipated, unbudgeted special education costs, which we have some of, the reserve fund can't exceed 2% of what we call net school spending. Net school spending for FY26 is $51.5 million. That means that this fund can only go to $1.03 million at any time right now. It was started at $73 million. We're underneath that. That's good. Okay. A couple more things about this is that city also in the fall through city council vote agreed that city each year typically has what is called free cash. Okay, it's not free, it's not cash, so it's not really named very well. But it's ultimately the balance of what's left over at the end of the year, funds that are expended. Okay, it's much more complicated than that, right? Ultimately, those dollars at the end of the year, once they're certified through accounting and state processes, the city has has free cash. Okay, by the Special Education Reserve Fund, 5% of the free cash each year be used to replenish, so to speak, or add to our Special Education Reserve Fund. So just to give you a math example here, you'll see how much free cash, the level of free cash the city had for each of the past 4 years. So you raised from 3.5 to 5.5 million. If the FY 2025 free cash, which I don't think has been certified yet, it's on the verge of being certified, was it 4 million? And $200,000 would be added to our special education reserve fund, bringing it to $950,000. Okay. We will be pursuing some of the dollars, and requesting. I will request the school committee approves use of the special education reserve fund. Right now, we're not sure what we'll request, but we will come forward with a request. Of course, if that's approved by the school committee, we'll then also go to city council as well. That should be, we should have a better handle on what we really need of the $600,000 that I shared with you, to really put ourselves in a good position for the end of this year and also set us up for next year as well. Okay. That'll come to BNF probably our February meeting, and then which is at the very end of the month, and then to the school committee in March.
There is a cap, right? I mean, the cap is what, little over 1 mil then?
Yeah.
So even if the free cash was over 4 million, it might mean more than 200. Regardless of what happens, we're not going over that number.
Right, you can't go over for FY 26, can't go over 1.03 million.
Yep.
In future years, that typically will, this spending increases every year typically, okay, not always. So that cap will go up, so it'll always be 2%. But yeah, so I don't, so there is some risk, but I don't know what the free cash numbers are again. May or may, I don't.
But keep in mind, it was funded at 750. We're not gonna get that again, right? So, and special education costs, you can't predict. So we don't wanna get that to a low amount and then have to try to build it up again too. So I think digging it into our budget and seeing where we have reserves, like we do have a special ed contingency fund that we haven't used yet. We can look into that and then maybe ask for less than we'll be asking for less than the amount that we're over right now, knowing that we have to be consistent in adding to this fund as well on anticipated expenses coming forward.
It is very, very important and very positive that the mayor and city council may create especially reserve fund, something we've been asking for quite some time, because as I just illustrated to you, those additional costs often will happen. We happen every year to some degree, and so we have special education contingency in our own budget. But of the last 4 years, probably 2 or 3 of those numbers that outstrip that contingency. So, and it's unpredictable.
Continue.
So last piece that I have updated with CNF is the statement of interest. You want to say anything before I mean?
No, you can. You're on a roll.
Great, awesome.
I mean, I can if you want.
No, I think we can give a little intro.
Yeah, so years ago, back in 2016, the school committee at that time, Kathy was here, and I believe we're the only 2 standing since then. We developed a plan, an elementary school plan, where we were discussing the conditions of our elementary schools. At the time, we had 5. And we had closed Fuller years before that, to talk about the replacement of the school, or the conditions of the schools, were they worth investing in to update, or were they in need of being replaced? And back in 2016, we did an intensive study on Beeman and East Gloucester and determined that both schools were in dire needs, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you were doing Beeman back then. We're in dire needs of repair. So we, as a school committee, discussed a plan and goals going forward on how we were going to bring our school buildings to the point of being safe and able to accommodate the needs of the students on the school sites. And what that led to was us putting in, MSBA, as we know, has a program where you can apply to the state to receive some funds to assist in the build out or renovation of schools. And we, as a school committee, wanted to take advantage of those tax dollars because they are our tax dollars too. They belong to everyone in the state, but we wanted to get our fair share. And at the time, we had 2 schools that were in need of some updating or replacement, and determined that it was going to be the East Gloucester School and Beaman. Knowing that we weren't going to do both, but we put in a statement of interest for both schools. And that's what this document is, and I think, are you handing this out?
No,
or-
just sort of show and tell.
Yeah, and I sent you the language on Beaman today, what it was said about Beaman, so that you would know what was in here about Beaman, because it's the school we're talking about tonight. So we put into statement of interest, and long story short, the school committee decided that we were gonna move forward with the East Veterans Project and combine East Gloucester and Veterans Memorial School. I know you have so much to say, because you were on the building committee and you did all this.
I just wanted to add that, what led to this, what led to a much, robust discussion and analysis and everything else is, the criticism that the city never planned long-term on their facilities. And, how can you let your, buildings go and blah, blah, blah. So, and obviously there's funding issues of what's available to be able to maintain our buildings and to renovate our buildings and do things like roofs and windows and things like that. And so this discussion also centered not just on the fact that these buildings were built approximately the same time, but that their conditions were terrible and obviously educationally they were deficient in terms of providing the right space. So we had this discussions because we had 5 schools and we wanted to know, are we replacing 5 schools? And what does that look like versus some kind of really thoughtful discussion around reducing the number of schools? One, because economically building 1 building versus 2, there's definitely, it's a much lower, significantly lower cost. And second, if we were to have proceeded down a path of rebuilding every school, we would have been 20 years out further than we are, because it takes, 7 to 9 years probably to get through any building project. And then that doesn't even consider any major issues that may come up on our high school, middle school. So this was a way for our committee to discuss what is the vision. Are we going to consider reducing the number of schools? So that is what also part of this discussion, of which we then proceeded with East Gloucester statement of interest with the opportunity to consider consolidating it with veterans.
And we did have public hearings on this, heard from the public, heard from the parents, plan for effective learning communities. And so we decided at the time, because we knew MSBA favored combining schools because they knew as well that replacing 2 schools with 1 was more cost effective. So that's how the committee as a whole came to a decision that we were going to combine our elementary schools and reduce our footprint and use staff in a better way, having more in the building. So what we're talking about tonight is the final step. It's amazing for me because this would be the 3rd school that we're discussing improving. So I'm gonna let Ben take over because I know he has lots to say on
Yes,
this,
well, I mean.
on the timing of it.
Yeah, and really, I want to just cover everything. It's the initial step, or the pre-step of the final phase.
Which is a very, very long phase.
And so what I'm going to do now is just give you a sort of an overview of what the full process would be. Okay, in terms of rebuilding a new school on Beaman, that would be for Beaman and Plum Cove, okay? And then just talk about where, what the steps are, okay? What the initial step is and what the full, phase happens, full process basically. So and it really is designed to be this is like an initial pre-step, okay? At a later date, I'll give you a sort of full timeline, which builds into what Kathy and Melissa just explained, like how we got to this point, okay, which is the, first initial step and the final phase, okay? But I'll put that all down and then folks can get a good look at that. But let me just show you where we are, what we're going to be doing shortly, as this sort of initial sort of baby step, really. As Melissa said, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, okay, has a process, very defined process, where communities can get reimbursed for a pretty decent percentage of a school building project. You have accelerated repair, which is like systems, like roof, windows, heating, that sort of stuff. Electrical. We use that process for the Manley School. We replace all the windows and doors the past couple of years. Okay. We use the core program, which is building a new school, which can be the one school or consolidation of more than one school. We have East Veterans and also West Parish. The core program, which is the rebuilding of the school or rebuilding the school, has 8 modules, okay? And this is just a graphic from the SBA. We're actually not even at the first module. We're over here with these little heads, okay? So what we're talking about tonight is actually what we need to do just to get into this process, okay? And typically, I've been looking at the timeline that we've had for both West Parish and East Veterans. And once we are actually accepted, if we are accepted into eligibility, which is module 1, okay? The earliest we can be accepted to that would be December 2026, so 7 months from now. Okay, and from that point, it's about 7 years, plus or minus a year. Typically not much less than 7 years, could be 6 plus, can be longer than that, be 8, 9, or even longer. But again, we're talking tonight about just this step, just before even getting in the gate, okay? So, and these are just them, so in a way you can actually read them. So we're going to be submitting a statement of interest. I'll talk about the statement of interest in depth in a moment. Okay, that's due on April 17th this year. That's reviewed over many months, and then the MSBA rather decides and lets districts know they're accepted into the eligibility period. We learn that in December. This December, 11 months from now, basically. Okay? But that begins the eligibility period, which takes 9 months, and these sort of 7 different modules which lead to construction, okay? I'll talk about those in a moment, but ultimately all these different pieces add up, 1 through 7, add up to at least 7 years to complete. Okay? Much more, some other ones. I won't go over each module too much, but I do want to give you a sense of how it goes, okay? So statement of interest, talk about that more in detail in just a moment, because that's what we're going to be trying to do. It's sort of pre-phase 1. The planning and team formation, if we were accepted in the eligibility period in December, okay, that's a 9-month, then it starts at 9 months of module 1, and it's simply putting together a building committee, okay, certifying enrollment, okay, getting feasibility study funding, okay. You're just completing preliminary requirements. At that point, then MSBA has got to give you the go-ahead to move forward. Okay, you may not be ready but you have choose how many days to do that. If you don't fulfill those obligations, choose how many days, you're basically out. Okay? After that, you have to form the project team. And the project team for MSBA project is an owner's project manager, essentially a project management firm that's sort of working for us, okay, and supporting us. They're organizing the team, okay? The team consists of a designer and ultimately also what we call a construction manager for the contract. But just getting the owner project manager and a designer on hand, you have to follow a very specific MSBA process, takes up to 8 months. We're not anywhere near even a design, okay? A year and a half in. Feasibility study is when you actually look at have a public process, with the building committee, led by the building committee, look at multiple different designs. These are schematic designs, so they're sort of rough designs. During that process, over those 12 months, public feedback into the process and the design, and you pick a preferred schematic design. Okay? That's essentially it's more than a rough sketch, okay, but it isn't anywhere detailed enough in terms of so you can go forward then into the next phase, module 4, which is schematic design. The schematic design, if you think of this is these levels of design get more and more specific, more and more detailed, okay? The first schematic is sort of a rough draft. The schematic design, which takes 8 months at least, is specific enough, detailed enough, but then you can go out and get cost estimates, okay? And at that point that's what you move into at that point. We're getting developing the final scope and cost of the project. Okay. Once that's approved by the MSBA board, then you can move towards getting securing funding. You're now moving into funding a project. Okay. That's happening along with module 6, which is detailed design. Detailed design means you are doing all the very, very specific construction documents needed for construction. Okay. You're still not in construction yet. After 12 months of detailed design, then you get into construction that can take 2 to 3 years. I believe East Veterans took 2 years, not exactly. It was, on budget, under budget rather, and on time. Recently, I happen to know they built a school in Cambridge that took, I think, 4 years. Okay, that's a much bigger school and a medical company. But anyway, it took 2 to 3 years is typical for construction. So those are all the pieces, and I share that all to help people understand that what we're talking about tonight with the statement of interest is a long, long way from deciding on building a school or building a school. Long, long way from that. Okay, but it is the thing you have to do to even enter into it. Okay, so I'll talk about that in a moment. The one thing with statement of interest, we could get through statement of interest and in December find out we were not accepted. And it's what's wash, rinse, and repeat. Okay, a year from now, do statements of interest again, and we apply. And that can happen, so again, because we're doing the same interest, there's no guarantee we'll go any further at this point, right? But without that, we don't even begin. Any pause there? Any questions so far?
I'm just gonna add also that to be accepted, it means you have one of the least, you have the school in the least good condition in the state. And so, it confirms what you think, that your school is in need of repair. You hope that they also recognize the deficiencies. I think when they saw the stream going underneath East Gloucester School, it probably sent a message of its condition. And also the MSBA is, the funding for the MSBA comes from 1% of sales tax. And so they have a limited budget. They have a significant budget, obviously, because they're helping a lot of communities. But if they choose one very large high school, then there's less money for how many projects. So some years more projects may get accepted than other years because of the different projects of building and or renovation that they're doing. Also, when you go into when you submit your statement of interest and then you go through kind of eligibility, you kind of figure out maybe what more you're doing, whether it's a renovation, whether it's an addition, whether it's a brand new school, what those dollars are. So they're always planning out their cash flow and what they can approve. So that's why there's 2 variables. How bad is our building? And 2, what is their funding capacity? Because as I've said a million times, it is really a very well-run state agency, really well. And they all smile because they're helping communities do things that they could never do on their own. They have probably one of the most rewarding jobs because of the difference they can make for anybody.
And that difference usually adds up to, on a project like East Betts.
The cost of building cost of constructing East Betts was $68 million. And I think I have this right, and the city will pay $31 million. Get that facility for $1 million is pretty much. There's some small dollars, but also if you look at other schools are being built at, many are much more expensive.
And we got 2 schools in one.
Yeah, very true. So let me go on and just talk through the statement of interest, because this is what we'll be working on together with DPW. And So I won't go through all the details, but I want to just show you, it's very extensive, okay, and they're really, so the purpose is to express interest and gain entry into the eligibility process. The city and the DPW and the schools work together to supply a lot of detailed information about, the school facility, data, its deficiencies, its educational impact, history of repairs. They want to make sure that you've been actually keeping up with repairing the building and doing the best with that. And we have to identify key priorities, or I think 7 priorities we can pick from. You would be looking at priority 5, which is the outdated facility, or even at that, and also space and program constraints, meaning essentially what we want to do in those buildings. We don't at this point have the space for them, and both of them are at maximum capacity. And because of that, we're doing things in small spaces that we never expected to be learning spaces or meeting spaces. Okay. To submit the statement of interest requires a school committee vote and a city council vote. Mr. Mayor, you said earlier at the mayor's meeting that if we have something to go in front of the city council, we have to be wary and conscious of the timeline for that. So I'm letting you know. And also, we have to submit SOIs for both Plum Cove and B. Again, I'll just show you. I won't go through all the detail, but all the things we need to be putting that they require us to submit. So the city works, and I met with Mike Hale on this. He's aware of this. He has the templates and stuff. Just talked recently. I mean, I talked and told him this was coming. I think November, December. Now it's been released. It was just released in January. Just sat down recently to talk to city and his department has most of the information in terms of about the building. Okay, so everything, things from building history, square footage, site description. Okay. How it's used, okay. The city also, has the information about the envelope condition, exterior walls, moving windows, interior finishes. They're asking for all this information, okay. And then the other piece is about mechanical and electrical systems. Heating and cooling, repairs have been done over the years, what the maintenance program's been, inspections that have happened, any reports about our capital facilities that they want to have. Okay? And those are just quickly the sort of level of information and amount of information that city supplies, provides in terms of the statement of interest. And then we move into the school department. Okay, so things like enrollment data on how we're currently using the facility. Okay, any space conversions. So what are spaces that are now being utilized for something we weren't intended to do? Okay, any talk about overcrowding or staffing ratio? They want us to submit that information. Programming interview. So program overview rather. So what's the grade structure? What programs are we offering? Special education programs. Okay. We're giving them space and inventory of all the educational administrative spaces. Right? Of course, we work with DPW on that square footage information. And then we're also identifying any substandard spaces. Okay. That could be constrained by the facility, by the size of the room, or the condition of it as well. Okay. And the last piece is sort of the impact of all those things on education. We have substandard spaces, or if we have crowding, if we have not enough rooms, that sort of thing. Impact on teachers and students in education, anything that sort of hinders the delivery of curriculum instruction. Talk mitigation measures, what have we done to sort of account for that? Also talk about future benefits of benefits. So those are the pieces of it. It's 20 or 30 pages. It's all done online, that sort of thing. It used to be paper or online. It's all online. But we will bring it to you, and you're signing off on submitting it. Same with the city council. We stop there and see if any other questions, concerns, comments, the like.
I have one question.
Sure, Glenn.
When you put in your statement of interest, if you don't get it the first year, is there any impact? I mean, is there anything about are you more likely to get it your next year, or is it just depend year to year what their other projects are?
I don't really know. It probably has most to do with the need you express or the document. Meaning, if you're doing something that there isn't a high need for,
right,
as Kathy said, so I'm also the opposite competition. But I don't know.
In comparison to other districts that are applying, you're kind of ranked, right?
Yeah.
And then big high school project that
Right.
might take out more dollars and other.
Right. But just a reminder, when we did submit the statement of interest, we put in Beaman at the time, and they told us which one to choose. So at that time, back in 2016, Beaman could have been the project we did instead of East Veterans. But we chose East Veterans, knowing it's gonna be more difficult because we had to find a location for it. We needed swing space. And those are two issues we don't have to address with this school because we determined the potential to build at Beaman while Beaman is still in school, this project.
Yeah.
So this was the easier one, so we chose the more difficult project instead. But back in 2016, Beaman was accepted. I know the DPW has done a lot of work there since as
Yeah.
far as maintaining it. But I can't imagine that 10 years later, we're in a position where the school is that much better.
You'll see as we share, like this report on the elementary master plan, that at that point, 2016, there was concern with the modulars. So the modulars at Beaman and Plum Cove account for half the learning space or more,
Yeah.
okay? And Plum Cove is more than 50% of learning space, okay? When I first got here, already concerned about, there were real problems with the modulars, okay? Crews, rodents, all sorts of things, okay? Heating, cooling, okay, leaks, with, COVID dollars, ESSER, I think it was, the city, with a lot of work from the DPW and others, essentially refurbished it. The envelope, okay, all, roofs, all sorts of things, sorry, not windows, but, all sorts of flashing,
Foundations.
foundations, and in order to make them usable and last 8 to 10 years, that was 3 years ago. So do the math, this will line up quite well. But there was concern about the lifetime of those modulars, back in 2016.
At any point, Ben, can the MSBA, once you're in the system, or once you've been approved, can they put the brakes on and say?
Yes,
hold up?
Subject to
yeah,
funding.
definitely. I can't remember off the top of my head which points it might be in some of the text there, but yeah, right, feasible definitely, but yes, they can, and you've got to essentially move forward by vote of their board. Okay, I think there are 2 different spots. Okay, so yeah, they definitely, yeah.
So it's the first of a very long step. We should consider.
Happens to be there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so we should work through, the timeline, so when the votes would be. The mayor pointed out, the city council has their process, we would want to vote before the city council.
Part of that, I'll leave it to one, but it was just what committees it made to go through the city council. So we have I'm thinking probably their version being that, but I'm not sure it's more than that. So we work guys to that.
Mayor Lumber, do we know if Beaman School is on the capital advisory board's vision?
We don't, we're beginning the process of energizing the capital improvement board right now, so. We'll find out where it belongs then. I mean, this is a very clear statement of the process, and I think are we at the point where we think there's some educational need to do this?
And in the comprehensive plan that was
Laura,
approved last
you wanna
year,
answer
they
that?
talked about improving.
I do.
School buildings.
Right.
That was something that the community wanted to.
Sure.
Mayor Lundberg, as a Beaman parent, I will tell you that we are most certainly beyond the need to improve that building. It's really, this year especially, it got even more squeezed because we have new programs there. So now we have a library on the stage. We have a principal's office in the closet. So I would say yes.
Have you had a chance to tour the school recently?
I went,
Oh, no, I meant recently.
No, no.
Sorry.
Change.
You might want to go for a walk through it.
Yeah, it's to the original.
Again.
Sorry.
No, but this is, I mean, that, one of the aspects of this process is to bring.
Yeah.
You know, communities to the disciplined approach of how you go through this, so
Right.
it's a great
People
place to
begging
start.
for it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you need from us going forward before we discuss that BNF next month? Anything particular?
No, I think it's hard idea. Excellent start.
So I've got one more question, because I wasn't obviously here when we did this, when these strategies, this part. What does the school committee need in terms of to have a vote on the statement of interest? You actually have to need the statement of interest completed, or do you just, I guess I don't really know that.
They give you language of what we.
No, I know what the vote is.
No, I'm just trying to think.
I don't know.
Does
it's-
it give detail of what we need to do in the language? I was trying to.
I think, one thing would, the whole statement of interest is making the case,
Right,
right? Not necessarily all the specific DPW,
Right.
HVAC is blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah,
yeah.
right? So
The
that
educational impact, shortcomings.
shortcomings and obviously mission, but as I say,
Yeah, sure.
and I think at that point, we would have enough information to vote that we would approve submitting it. We'll have to find out if we have to have your final language and it prepared or just
Okay.
the framework and know it's 75% there. And we'll have to ask council what they'd be comfortable with, so that their vote happens in time for the submission date as well.
And Tony Gross is still council president, right?
Yes, he is.
Okay, great. You're good.
And he was there,
You know,
previous class.
Okay.
he knows.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And that's the end of my report.
That's a voice. Your voice doesn't hurt. Okay, the last thing is just a list of subcommittee assignments. If anybody has any feedback that we've not already discussed, there was a document that's part of our packet. Everything's pretty predictable, and I didn't speak with everybody. I think, in terms of ad hoc communications, we'll talk about communications in our workshop. For governance and what school committee can put out there for communication versus what is operational. So I think that'll help inform what we think, an ad hoc communication subcommittee needed for. Does it have the same, when we formed it because we weren't doing really anything. We didn't have a Facebook page, we didn't have any way of kind of amplifying, putting out any information. So, so that had a particular and purpose, and we should discuss if it's, how it's working and if we see other, other opportunities or just basically, it's not like having a job per se. We don't want it to be onerous on any one person. It's not creating information, it's amplifying information. But we should have that discussion.
But we do, just to say, we did, when we created the committee and when we created the Facebook page, we also created policy.
Right.
So we do have a clear policy on that, which I think we did run by our MASC represent Dorothy at the time. So that should be part of it as well, because I think I have to go back to it, but I think that policy, probably still holds. So, but we'll go back to it.
Yeah.
So any other new business?
I have one thing because I've had a lot of people ask, and this is for. So the hiring of the new assistant superintendent. I know this is your decision, Mr. Lamas, if you are the superintendent. And people are wondering, is this gonna, Amy, you're gonna have a lot of say in this. We want you to be able to build your own team, manage the way that you want to manage, set the goals that you want to set. So I think that a lot of people are asking this question, so I figured, let's get it out of the way and figure out how that's going.
It's a great question. Thanks for asking, first of all. And I will let Amy Pasquarello answer that question.
So the law is that the superintendent presents a candidate to the school committee for approval, and that's what will happen. But I am very much in the process of interviews, screening committee, both several rounds of interviews, and Superintendent Lemon is listening very closely to what my opinions are.
Wonderful.
Reference checks, part of that.
I'm
as
part of
well.
reference
Of
checks,
course,
a part of all this. So I'm part of every step of it, and I'm thankful that that is being honored, yeah.
It's being included.
Yes.
What's the timeline on that?
So we've finished interviews. So let me add a little bit to this, because some folks, we had to clarify for some folks, it's a very different process than superintendent, obviously. But then also different principles and different like things like special education director. All those are much more public processes, or most public processes, okay? For a variety of reasons, business superintendent is less public, okay? It's, not exclusively primarily sort of, teacher and sort of staff facing position. But also, and because of it, so it's really much more akin to other staff positions we hire, right? And because of that, it's a confidential process to respect the candidates, honestly. And so we don't make it public. We don't make their candidates public until we get to a certain step with them. And so that's why not many folks have heard about it. But we've had 2 panels of interviews. I mean, two different interview panels. First for the initial candidates, and then the finalists. And though each of those panels has been a great mix of roles and perspectives. So across schools, paraprofessionals, secretaries, teachers, obviously, administrators, district office leaders, that sort of thing. So really feel, which is what we typically do. Another piece of that was we had everyone review an article on unconscious bias in hiring. So the risk of the shortcomings of human judgment in important decisions, and how we all have biases and how do you move past them. Especially move away from my gut tells me. So someone starts talking about their gut telling them anything, we probably should use a different process for decision making. So that's another piece of the process. And then we also created a leadership profile. There was a survey we posted. So got input on some important things around where are we in terms of instruction and learning, strengths, areas of needing to improve, and what are folks looking for in the next superintendent. So that profile was used with both interview panels, both in looking at questions, but also assessing the candidates. So we've completed interviews right now and just sort of the process of moving forward and figuring out what the next steps are with the finalists.
Great.
Okay. Well, sorry.
I was just gonna reiterate your question when you said, what's the timeline look like? When do you think?
Yeah. Hoping to bring my recommendation, which really is our recommendation of that,
Yes.
for the next school meeting.
Oh, great.
Hoping that timeline will work out.
Okay.
Not sure,
We won't hold to it.
yeah, but we're aiming for that, I would say.
Mhm.
Is BNF gonna review any salary attached to that?
Not necessarily, because it's a position that already exists.
You're not going about the salary that's budgeted?
We don't have a budget for next year.
So we should be setting a salary
That's
as part of the budget process. Yeah. So we need to have that conversation.
okay. I would prefer to talk about that specific thing outside of the public realm, so we'll check in on timing. So.
Yeah. And it's, yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
That was the longest delay ever.
And Andrea did not rejoin the meeting, so we can do me saying all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.